Yeah.
Another edition of Riding Home D-Leggy. Ryan Curley. This time we're not driving. Well, Ryan is, and
Always.
we're going to talk about the dogs and Kirby Smart tonight talking about some updates. Looks like AD Mitchell. It looks like AD Mitchell is closer to playing than in the past.
Yeah.
Anyway, take it away, Ryan.
Well, listen, that was my main takeaway from tonight. It was, a similar takeaway that we've had the last few days. The dogs are banged up. And I think it might be a little worse than maybe we thought. I mean, during the press conference, oh man, speed
It's all
bumps.
right. You're fine.
During the press conference, I was writing down just a list of names of guys who are just even a little bit injured, and the list is long. I'll try to name some of them right now. Smile Mondin,
Right.
Jalen Carter, A.D. Mitchell, Arian Smith's not 100%. Tate Rowledge is not 100%. I saw Xavier Truss go down. I know he didn't come out of the game, but there's no way he's 100% after what I saw.
Right.
There's more guys. Kenny McIntosh is not 100%. Now, he practiced well Monday and Tuesday, according to Kirby, but that doesn't mean that he's 100%. I mean, I thought I could tell a little bit on Saturday. He didn't re-injure it, though, Kirby noted. But injuries, and they're 5 games into the season. It's tough to just recover from that. You want them to get healthy. If you're Georgia, you probably, I don't know how long Jalen Carter's going to be out. It sounds like it's going to be sometime between 2 weeks and a month. Do you hold him for the Tennessee game? Do you hold him for a specific game? I don't know,
No.
but they're not healthy, and I think that's affected their play.
Okay, a couple of different things. First of all, these guys will be a different team after the off week. That's I'll tell you that right now. No matter how they play against Auburn or Vanderbilt, they will be a different team. I'm just noticing the Halloween stuff in the background. Wow. Um, they will be a different team. Getting AD Mitchell back at all makes them a better team, a different team to me.
Yeah.
Make sure you're picking up DAWGSTRUCTION today. The AD stuff reminds me of this image that's in there. We've got a bunch of books. They're ready to go out. If you want it autographed or signed or a special note to any of your loved ones, let me know. I'll do it. But tell me immediately, dean@dogpost.com. Dude, if you watch that game, I did not realize how often Stetson was getting hit against Missouri, but it was a lot. And secondly, he really gutted through that game. So, how many times is that going to happen as we move forward? I don't know. He obviously can handle it, but you don't want your quarterback constantly getting just touched. So there's some adjustments to be made there. I think even in the second half he was getting touched, but Jalen. I mean, my expectation, knowing nothing, is that you're still looking at him coming back for Jacksonville. But that's almost 4 weeks from now, so that's a solid amount of time from now. But let's just see how he recovers. Now, the good news is a lot of these guys we're mentioning right now, these are really good players for Georgia / stars. AD and Jalen Carter definitely are. But
Yes.
Xavier Sorey getting hurt, like that's not going to work either. And I was right there when he came off the field saying, my ankle, I've hurt my ankle. So he got back out there though. But I'm telling you, nobody's
Well,
healthy. Let me just finish this one thought, Ryan. Nobody's healthy, generally speaking, in college football right now. Maybe Tennessee, but even they got their receiver out. So they've had a week off now. They're going down to LSU. So that's not fun. Georgia needs to get to the bye week at 7-0. If they do that, they can start moving forward in a very serious way. I mentioned Tennessee. Alabama's starting quarterback is banged up. I mean, this is just part of football. That's why you recruit. Go ahead.
yeah, I mean, and to add on top of Xavier Sorey, Tresvant Marshall hasn't been 100% all year, and he's never been 100% in his entire career at Georgia.
Right.
And so that middle linebacker room, when you got 3 out of the 4, main guys that are injured, even if they're playing, that's not great. Those are guys that you expect to be flying around all over the place.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the timetable is on the Javon Bullard suspension, the deal with all that. So, that's another start.
Is he not back this week? Have I missed something?
He's practicing. That's He's practicing, so I
Okay.
assume he's playing this week.
Okay.
But that was another missed player, not an injury thing,
Yeah.
but another missed player. So the personnel is not at its best, and hasn't been at its best apparently since the first play of the Oregon game, which was when Jalen Carter messed up his ankle. He played according to Kirby, now he played the entire Oregon game off of adrenaline, and the
Well, but
injury
here's
against.
the thing. Here's the thing. Okay. Well, I don't know what happened there. I cut you off, but you completely. Are you still there?
Yeah, you
Okay.
good?
Yeah, I mean, I cut you off, which I, have a lot of fun spiking the football about, but I couldn't hear you, which was very disturbing. We have to hear our Ryan. Anyway, hey, just real quick, we're gonna be at Paloma Park. Ryan, myself, and Anna Ruth will be there talking about the dogs. If you want to see us live and hang out, we're gonna be there from 4 to 7 before the Auburn game. 4 to 7
On
before the
Friday.
Auburn on Friday. And also, we will be there for the Vanderbilt game, which is the next week, homecoming. Make sure you're at Paloma Park. It's downtown on Washington. Do not miss it. We will hang out. We will talk. It's going to be a lot of fun. And there's only so many weekends in Athens that you get, and our friends at Peach State Light are going to be there helping us on our way when we're at Paloma. So make sure they're from 4 to 7. We're going to behave ourselves. Ryan is going to behave himself. I cannot speak for everyone in the crowd, but I do think they will be a different team when they show up in Jacksonville, and they will have. I don't see them eating a loss right now. Still in the regular season, I do not see them eating a loss to Auburn or Vanderbilt, but they will be a different team when they get to Jacksonville. How well they will play in the meantime is a good question. I think you got to get Edwards the ball a little bit more in the backfield, but I mean,
Yeah. Yes.
honestly, man, the way that they're doing it is working, though. I mean, it worked against Missouri. It worked against Kent State. It's worked generally speaking. There's just no one unbelievable running back. They went Kenny with 11, Edwards with 11, Milton with 7. They all averaged at least 4.5. They all averaged 4.5 yards a carry, man. That's a lot, Ryan.
It's a committee. They don't have a Nick Chubb or a Todd Gurley right now, and that's maybe it's not a bad thing as long as they can fill that space that they need, fill those numbers that they need, get the job done. I think Dejan probably deserves more carries, especially
Maybe.
if you're trying to avoid, furthering Kenny McIntosh's groin injury. Maybe, lighten it up for him a little bit. I still think Kenny McIntosh is their best complete back, but it looks like Dejan's their best runner. Those are different things. And look, it's just that I don't think they're just not as good as they were last year, particularly on the defensive side of the ball. And so, there's going to be a freak out just because last year people grew accustomed to the way they just strangled people on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, that's a good word for it.
Yeah, it
That when
was.
Missouri is putting up 22, it's like, oh my god. But it's a different team, and they might have to fight their way a little bit more than they did last year. I still think that they're championship contenders. I
They are.
still, at this point in time, think that they're going to make the playoff, but maybe it's not as dominant of a team as they were last year.
Well, if there's a team in college football, or if there's a team in college football right now that is dominant the way that Georgia was a season ago, Bama was in 20, and LSU was in 19, I'm not sure we totally know that yet. It could be Georgia, frankly. I mean,
Yeah, it might.
and
It
when you
might be.
when you look back at the games that have been played by those teams, there was
Yeah.
a game in each season, if not more, where teams had to fight their way out of the stadium. Now, and I will go back to the LSU game, the LSU season in '09. They beat Texas by a touchdown on the road, but they beat them by a touchdown. People do not remember, but they had to save themselves against Auburn at Auburn. Excuse me, at home. So that was just like a real sketchy situation. And then they kind of, I'm not saying they didn't catch fire, but they were always scoring. But that was the one game they didn't score, and they had to save themselves. They caught fire from that game on, they only beat Alabama by 5, but they were putting it on Alabama pretty good. That Alabama game, excuse me, that Alabama team in 20, they I wouldn't say they saved themselves against Georgia, but they didn't just beat Georgia's ass. I mean,
No, they were down at halftime.
that was a tight game, where they had to, play pretty well. Other than that game and the SEC championship game that they won by 6 against the Gators, really nobody challenged Alabama. Now, Georgia a year ago was challenged in 3 games, right? They lost one of them. They beat Clemson. They just didn't beat them the way they should have, I thought.
Yeah.
And then, of course, they lost the SEC championship game and won the national championship game. Alabama a year ago was doing what Georgia did this past week. It was constant.
Was it you that said that, or was
Yeah.
it a commenter that said
No,
that?
it was
I've
me.
seen that in a couple spots.
It was me. I mean, like if you,
Okay.
I mean, Alabama did not win the national championship last year. I'm not sure if everybody's aware of this, but you can relive that national championship with DAWGSTRUCTION. The link is down below. Okay, so Alabama last season, 2-point win on the road.
They gutted it out, man.
All right,
they had to.
2-point win on the road at Florida. They lost to unranked Texas A&M by a field goal. They beat LSU by 6, a team that was not good, LSU, last year. They had to save themselves there. They beat Arkansas at home by a touchdown. Their game against Tennessee was way closer than people thought it would, and then they blew them out. And then, of course, the game they certainly should have lost, which was Auburn, in 4 overtimes. So I don't think Georgia will struggle like that. I mean, we're 5 games in the season, and Alabama at this stage a season ago, they were 5-0, but they lost Game 6 on the road at A&M. They corrected some things, Ryan, but they were always teetering a season ago. This Georgia team is probably better than last year's Alabama team, I think. But last year's Alabama team, man, they had to really fight their way out of there. And I feel like I've talked enough now. It was tough for them. Tough.
Alabama did not just fly through their schedule last
No.
year, and they lost a game, and they should have lost to Auburn.
Yeah. Would you like me to recite the 2018 Clemson team for you?
They flew through everything.
Well, you would think they
Well, they beat it. That was a 15-0 team, right?
You don't remember it quite clearly, do you? See, no one does. They beat Texas A&M by 2 on the road. Survival. Now, that was before Trevor Lawrence. Well, what about when Trevor played against Syracuse and they won by 4 at home? Does anyone remember that game? No, they don't. So
we're giving Clemson too much screen time, man.
What's that? Well, they won.
We're giving Clemson too much screen time.
They won the national championship in 18, and my point here is that you do have bad games, and you do have national championship teams have bad games. I'm going to stick with Clemson. Just relax. Keep your purple underlings on.
They're green, actually.
Well, thank you for the update.
I had to double check.
This was the Clemson team that won the national championship in 2016. They beat Auburn on the road by 6. They beat Troy at home by 6. They beat NC State in overtime in a game they definitely should have lost at home. They lost to Pittsburgh, and then they got it together, for lack of a better term. And they beat Virginia Tech by 7, and then they of course beat Alabama on the last play of the game. The days of flying through these undefeated teams. Georgia a season ago, of course, was not undefeated. But I'm going to talk to you real quick too, Ryan, about the Alabama 2015 team, since you say we're giving Clemson too much airtime. They lost to Mississippi 43-37 at home. They had to survive Tennessee 19-14. But then they took off from there. Okay, so I guess my global point is, and I know I've only been doing this for 22 years, that there is no certainty here. We don't know what the future holds with Georgia. We know what the past has been, which is it's very rare in a college football season that you just roll everybody. The 15-0 LSU, the 15-0 Clemson, people are forgetting their real fights to get out of Auburn. You know, in the
I
case of,
remember those games. I remember.
I mean, that was a knife fight. Now it was at Tiger Stadium, it
That,
was in Death
that was
Valley, but they had to fight their way out of there. You better learn how to do that. You better learn how to hit backhands, or you ain't winning. I mean, you're just gonna lose.
2019 LSU had a couple, they
Texas,
struggled with Texas before they took off. Alabama was a
they barely
shootout.
beat
So,
Auburn.
yeah. So, I mean, look, I remember a lot of the games that you just mentioned.
That was a good Auburn team. I have to say.
Auburn has had good teams the
Why
last
are we
10
not
years.
talking about Auburn right now? Because they're 30-point dogs. You don't buy it.
2010 Auburn struggled through their way to national championship.
They
If we want to go
they definitely
the comeback game against.
Well, it wasn't just that game.
No, all of their a lot of their games were tight.
Okay, so I will review. They kicked as I recall, they kicked a field goal to win it on a Thursday night at Mississippi State to win 17-14. A week later, they had to go into overtime to beat Clemson at home. They survived South Carolina. I would tell you that was a pretty good Carolina team. They had to kick a field goal to win it against Kentucky. We're just at October 9th. Now, then they started catching a little momentum, and they drilled number 12 Arkansas, which was a good Arkansas team, but it was really the LSU game. 24-17, Cam Newton had a huge scramble and a long, long run, and then of course you talked about the comeback, and then they had to kick a field goal to win it against Oregon. They had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games, 7 that were within a score, and they won all of them. Not with a good defense either.
Yeah.
There's no one way to win a national championship.
I mean, the point being, you can't expect them to just fly through everybody 2 weeks in a row. Not exactly what we, maybe predicted, but as long as they're winning games.
But are you predicting them to beat Auburn? I don't see how anybody with a brain would pick them to lose.
I'm predicting them to drill Auburn.
Oh, okay. You want to go through that? I mean, I know we have riding home with Matt soon, but he's going to be probably, 17 Bud Lights into the Braves, NL East championship. So why do you think that they will drill them?
Few reasons. In Sanford Stadium, I think that this weekend's going to be a good atmosphere in the city. I think they're probably a little. Ooh, do not hit me. That was aggressive. They probably are a little embarrassed about last week, if we're being honest.
Very embarrassed.
They're probably,
right?
Kirby's. As chill as he's been, I don't think he's obviously not super pleased, and they're just way better. Auburn is not a good football team, and they've had it easy with 5 home games to open up. And now their first game's on the road. It's going to be a slap in the face for them. Their quarterback situation is disaster.
Well, and you're I can still hear your voice, but your video is not coming through. So keep it coming. But they're
you can't see me.
I can see you, but you're frozen. Ashford played pretty. I mean, it was very productive. He had almost 350 yards. Listen. I watched the whole Auburn LSU game. That is a wonderful classic rivalry in this league. Growing up as a kid, some of those games, LSU Auburn, those were just awesome. I remember those more than the Iron Bowl, to be honest with you. But I don't know if that's going to work against Georgia. I mean, like, I don't know.
Yeah. Kind of going back to what went on tonight, I think we got a comment on the riding home where we were discussing Kirby being chill. We got a comment that, I was actually curious about too. Georgia's not down at the half, much of late. So I asked Stackhouse.
It's not been since the national championship game and the SEC championship game.
It just doesn't happen very often in the last couple of years for Georgia. So I asked Stackhouse. I thought that he would be, more willing to divulge some information than Tyke Smith. So I asked him, is there any difference in the way Kirby was acting at the half than he does in a normal game? And of course, he just gave me coach speak just through a player's mouth. But
the answer was no,
uh,
right?
but the answer was no. That
Yeah.
they sat down and they assessed what needed to be fixed. That whether they're down or up,
The
it's the
defense
same.
didn't need to fix much of anything. I mean, the Missouri quarterback made two big plays, and it really helped Missouri score.
Well, I mean, if you go back and watch that game, like Missouri had a few plays that popped,
Right.
but other than that, Georgia,
Shut them down.
swamped them. Those few plays just happened to matter a lot, and Georgia wasn't scoring to their capability.
Right.
So, I mean, it just wasn't a great game for Georgia. And
But everybody's been so focused on that, and like it doesn't matter right now at all. It makes no difference.
It doesn't. I still think their best football is ahead. As the season goes on, I agree with you that we're going to see probably a different team after Jacksonville or heading into Jacksonville once they have that bye.
I think.
And my guess would be that's Jalen Carter's first game back. That's what makes the most sense to me. It could be Tennessee. I doubt that he plays before the bye.
Well, the betting market has got all three of these teams. I mean, Georgia is a very, very slight favorite to win the national championship now. They were more of a favorite a week ago. So people have certainly seen it. Like, for instance, of course, these folks aren't paying us, so I'm not even going to tell you their names. But the only situation, there's one situation where Ohio State is in a better position than Georgia. No, there are two. But the majority of them, Georgia is still considered the favorite, although Alabama is also, you can get statistical numbers where all three teams are tied. It's just that in most cases, Georgia is either tied to be the favorite or they are narrowly second, whereas Alabama in some cases is the third, or Ohio State is the third. I think you've got three clear teams that are there to win the national championship, and then you've got SC and Clemson and Michigan after that. I don't know.
Those three are interesting. I wonder if they'll keep it up.
Well, you mean Clemson, SC, and
the Clemson, SC, USC tier teams is interesting to me. I think people. I'm not saying Oklahoma State is necessarily going to make the playoff, but they've been doing pretty well in the Big 12 over there. They clearly look like the best Big 12 team to me. When you have a quarterback like Spencer Sanders, that's he's been there for a while and he's pretty good. And
they score. So the difference in the three teams. I'm sorry, Ryan. The difference in the three teams that. Why don't you run over to the clubhouse to Red Zone just real quick? You're running.
Yeah, I can do that. I'm waiting. I'm hungry. I want my Chick-fil-A.
Yes, thank you for mentioning them. The difference between those three teams, at least stereotypically, is that SC and Oklahoma State have been scoring a lot. Now, SC lately, that Wazoo game, people, I don't know. I thought that was a really good win for USC personally, but not Wazoo. They beat Oregon State. That's like a nightmare for them. But Clemson's not scoring like those guys are. They're not scoring like those guys are, and I wonder, there it is. There's a lot of really good stuff, by the way, not just the book that is in that.
Talk Kirby to me.
Talk Kirby to me is hilarious. I cannot remember the young lady who came up with the shirt name, but that is too funny. It's too funny. And like, look, Kirby understands the team he's got. It is not the same team as a year ago. It's not. They're not as good. I mean, some of us have been saying that for a long, long time. But they can win the national championship. In fact, it may be that they should win the national championship. I'm not sure I'm ready to say that, but I'm not sure I'm ready to say, like, I thought it would be Alabama and Ohio State this year. I don't know if I can really say that right now.
I never really said it, but I kind of thought it was going to be Georgia and Ohio State.
Ohio State is.
If you ask me today, today is, I think Ohio State
Number one.
is probably going to all. But
Yeah.
the thing I would say is, you can make your preseason prediction and everything, but every single day things change. And every single week in college football, things change. Georgia's a contender for sure. They may win it. We know that that's in the capability. There's a lot of guys left over from last year, even if it's still a young team, that know what it takes to do it.
Yeah.
And even the guys that didn't play that much that are on this team saw what it takes to do it. And, most of the coaching staff still intact. Kirby believes this is the best staff that he's ever assembled at Georgia.
Yeah,
He said that multiple times.
But dude, I'll leave you with this, Ryan. He also said that these guys are inexperienced, and the only way to do this is to get experience. Well, guess what? They just got a lot of experience at
That's
Mizzou.
what they're doing, man. At Mizzou at night, we were there.
Did you think
that was
it
not
was
a
that? I mean, I thought it was a little bit jumpy, man. I mean, I thought Missouri.
It was loud.
Yeah, Missouri did a good job.
They did a good job. I was impressed. I still am not a fan of the whole third down thing that they got going on. It's also a trending TikTok song right now, and so it's just driving me nuts. So I was like triggered every time.
Which means it works. But hey, look, the big thing is, and we'll continue. It's Tuesday. Now this is going to be broadcast on Wednesday. We're still talking about Missouri game when they got Auburn coming up, and Auburn can play real physical. Georgia needs to take care of Auburn, take them deadly seriously, because you do not want to be in a second half game with Auburn, because although they have wilted, or they wilted a week ago against LSU, you don't want to give Auburn any really momentum at all. Georgia needs to play well. This is the first time this season they do need to kind of play well, I think.
I think time where we're like, okay, I need to see something. I think we will.
Well, we'll see.
I was very wrong about what was going to happen in the Missouri game, but that doesn't change what I think about this week.
Well, that's what Ryan has to say. Thanks for watching. Riding home. Ryan's going to go get a food from a restaurant.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.